Yeah, what's happening? We about to bring that action. Gotta hold it down for my Seattle Kraken. Hey, we going beneath the waves. We going beneath the waves. Get it hype, step onto the ice. Ready for some action. Release the Kraken. Hey, we going beneath the waves. Going beneath the waves.
Welcome in to the Beneath the Waves podcast, your weekly source of all things Seattle Kraken and beyond. My name is Matt, and with me today, as always, is...
It's Heather.
Hello, it's Derek.
And it's Alex.
And welcome into episode 4 of the B2W pod. Welcome back if you're a returning guest. Welcome in if you are someone new. Love to have you here. Thank you to everyone who over the past few weeks has given us a listen, dropped a review on Spotify or Apple or the podcast app of your choice. I hope that you guys have gotten used to that daylight savings time change that you all do. Being in Saskatchewan, we don't do that, but I know that you guys do, and there's lots of confusion with the times. And me, myself, when it came time to record, I wasn't sure because my time switched around. So, Derek, do you know what time it is?
Oh my goodness. I had no idea where you were going with that until the very end, but it is indeed mailbag time. Yo, it's mailbag time, yo. And today we have 3 questions in total from 2 different users. The first question is, how might a team have such disparate offensive scoring results in front of 2 objectively good goaltenders? And that's from our great friend, Gwen in doubt on Twitter. I assume, Gwen, that you're talking about Grubauer and Joey. If we look at last season, I actually mapped this all out on an Excel spreadsheet before our game against Boston. But the goal support really isn't that disparate. Joey had an average of 2.64 goals for in his games last year, and Grubauer had an average of 2.58. I think it can be chalked up to a multitude of factors, such as differing strength among different opponents, the Kraken's inconsistency, which I'm sure we'll be talking about today, and random variance, just luck. But it does hurt when we see one of Grubauer's best showings with Seattle met with 0 goals for, as it also is very tragic when we see one of Joey's best performances met with 0 goals from the Kraken, as we did after writing this against Boston. But again, we'll talk about that. But there really isn't a huge difference in the offensive production or lack thereof between those 2 goalies. The second set of questions comes from Kraken Fan 32, and they ask, does Vince Dunn actually make a difference, or are these issues bigger than just offense? I assume the issues they're referring to are us losing and not scoring goals. Also, when will Vince Dunn be back? First of all, the last I heard, we are still working with the game November 12th against the Blue Jackets for Vince Dunn's earliest return, and that's only based on the minimum LTIR inactivity time, and that's by no means a guarantee for his return. Secondly, Vince Dunn arguably makes the most difference of any one skater on the team. I'd put Brandon Montour up there with him, arguably above him. This season alone, Montour has had a far greater impact on the games than Dunn, but there's no doubt about it that having Montour and Dunn in your lineup at the same time is menacing AF. This team relies so much on generating offense from the defensemen set up in the O-zone, due to their lack of solid transition play, since we don't have any star players to get the goals in transition, breakaway, dangling the entire team scenarios. So we'll be very eagerly awaiting his return. And that's back to you, Matt.
On the Vince Dunn one, I saw a stat earlier today that said in games without Vince Dunn playing, we are 11-27-5. So I think that there's got to be some sort of correlation happening there, that Vince Dunn brings a lot of value to this team, because that's a heartbreaker number to read there.
100%.
Yeah, those are lottery draft pick numbers. Like, that's, if you don't have Vince Dunn in the lineup, you're looking at a top 5 pick, in my opinion.
All right, well, we want to thank Kraken Fan 32 and Gwen in Doubt for the questions. We always throw out the Twitter mailbag questions in the days leading up to our recording, so keep an eye out for that on the Twitters at BTWSEA. And now I'm kind of worried about how this is going to go. I was listening back to some old podcasts, and we started off feeling not so great. Then we started feeling really, really good with our vibe check. And I am very concerned with how today's group vibe check is going to go. Who wants to kick off how we're currently feeling in the group vibe check?
I'll do it. I'll just rip off the Band-Aid and do it. I keep saying every week we don't have a big enough sample size to truly judge, but we're getting to that point where we have quite a bit of sample size. So it's harder and harder to say that we can't tell how the team is performing yet. I will say, I want to bring this up because The Athletic had this article that came out today where they interviewed Ron Francis. And to be fair, they did interview him after the 8-2 win. But I still want to read this quote because I thought it was really interesting. And it's something that we've kind of talked about here. But this is what he said. I don't think we're hitting on all cylinders yet. I feel like we're still trying to find our way a bit. We've got a new coaching staff. We've got new players added both from free agency and younger players stepping in. We're still trying to figure out the line combinations and what works. I think we've shown we're capable in sprints, a really good period here, a good period and a half there. But we think we've got a good team. We think we've got a deep team. It's a matter of getting it all to click. So I know what he's saying, but I'm bothered by the fact that he said we have a good period here and a good period and a half there. And I just think that's not enough. So I do think, like we've talked about, everyone has to be on their A game in order for this team to win. And when somebody isn't, everybody suffers. Having Vince Dunn out of the lineup means the whole team kind of suffers. And it's like they have to really come all together because we don't have that superstar player. And that to me is a little bit frustrating because it really sort of depends on luck. And I don't know that that's a good way to run a team or to be successful. When we made the playoffs, that was a lot of luck. Everyone was firing on all cylinders. Everyone was on their A game every night. Like it was different. This year and last year, I think we're struggling with that a bit, where if somebody is off, everybody is off. So I think, we have to have all four lines contributing, all the defensive pairs contributing, both goaltenders contributing. Like we have to have everybody on their A game at all times. And that's a very difficult way to build a team to be successful, to make the playoffs. So my vibe check is more of like, this is what Ron Francis said. This is how I feel. And I think that's kind of where we are right now.
So I totally agree with what Heather was saying there. That was a great kind of breakdown of what Ron Francis had said. One thing that I read this morning, I was reading the Sound of Hockey Monday Musings that John Barr puts out every week. And one of the things he said was a line from John Forsland during one of the games this week. He said, eventually early in the season becomes the season. And I think that's kind of the danger zone that we're starting to get to. You only have so much of a grace period where you can go in and say, yeah, we're still working out the kinks. We're figuring out how to gel everyone together. And eventually it's gotta happen. And we're starting to run out of times where we can say it's still early in the season. Looking at our performance compared to last year, I know coming in we were all hoping for a more 2022-23 season out of this team, but through 13 games we have the exact same amount of season points that we did last year. So it's kind of a mirror reflecting what we did before. We do have some new exciting sounds of life, which we'll get into talking about the Canadiens game coming up, but it's starting to look a little bit grim, but I'm still going to hold out just the faintest sliver of hope.
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys in what you've brought up about Ron Francis. And I really just wanted to touch on a couple things related to Ron Francis. First of all, I'm going to go to Matt's point and say that, and Heather's point, and say that, it's not the beginning of the season anymore. Our playoff odds on Money Puck just dipped below 10% for the first time this year. They're at 9%. And they don't do that lightly. It's a pretty advanced model, so that's not good. Also, something that will go to Alex's preseason predictions on the year is that Money Puck now projects us to have 78.9 points. Very, very, very close, within striking distance to Alex's 76.
It's still more than 76. It's still more than 76.
A far cry from our mid-90s.
Very close.
But I also just wanted to mention that I think it's a mistake to necessarily blame Ron Francis here, just as it was to give him all the credit in year two when we were very lucky. I think that this is a team that's still trying to find superstars. And when you don't have superstars, you're going to be very inconsistent, as Heather mentioned. And I also think that following last year, there was probably an opportunity to trim a lot of the fat that we had and trade away some fan favorites maybe. But the GM incentives in the NHL don't always align with that. As a GM, I'm sure you have a pretty strong incentive to win a decent amount of games for your season ticket holders that are like your primary investors, and not trading away fan favorites. So there's incentives that Ron Francis has that are kind of handcuffing him, and a new GM wouldn't necessarily solve those, is what I would say. And I also think that there's just a track record with Carolina and also with our draft picks so far that shows that I think Ron can build for the future. And I think maybe it's just very unfortunate that we've maxed out our cap, sort of put the pedal to the floorboard, and it seems like we're the exact same as last year, as Matt said. So
Year 4. It's not year 1. It's not the inaugural season. It's not year 2. It's not even year 3. We're in year 4. I'm done with excuses. I'm done with Ron Francis coming up with quotes saying, the team's figuring things out. I'm done with it. Ron, you're the general manager. Manage. Don't sit in your high press box, look over practice, and determine that, these boys are all right. When you expect all 4 lines to flow at the same time, all 6 defense to play at the same time and figure it out together, and for some reason expect both goaltenders to show up every game. I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. Ron Francis is under this impression that this team that he's built, that he's really maxed out the cap space, is going to not only succeed, but make the playoffs, but even contend for a Stanley Cup. And I really do believe it, because you don't max out your salary cap in a way that you're going to expect to maybe make the playoffs. Like, only teams that max out your salary cap are teams expecting to make the playoffs. Derek said it perfectly. The expectation now is 78 points. Not a playoff team. Not a team fighting for a playoff spot. Mid. Flat out mid. And from games this week, we have seen boring, lethargic, downright bad hockey. And it's just, what the definition of insanity is, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting for a different outcome, it's exactly what we're watching with this team and Ron Francis. You can't blame the coaching staff. They're brand new. We brought in some new players. You can only do so much with the players that we have. Who's the one person that needs to make the decisions and make the hard choices? It's Ron Francis. I go back to the same thing. We're in year 4. Like, we're in the 4th season of this franchise. Ron Francis has had plenty of time to figure this out. And if you can't, or are unwilling to make a move because you're trying to be patient, then you're not going to have a job soon. It happened with Carolina. Sure, he built a great prospect pool and he's good at drafting, but fans want to see you win now. Fans are frustrated. Fans are irritated. Fans want wins. When you have 3 games in a row where you can only score 1 goal, when you haven't, I think it's you haven't seen a 5-on-5 goal in 4 games, it's cause for concerns. It's the same thing over and over again. And I'm just at the point where, yes, there's a lot of fan favorites. Yes, everybody has attachments to certain players. You got to rip the Band-Aid off. Just trade one. Make an example. Prove a point. Do something to ignite this team, because you have all this talent. Your 4th line is almost $10 million. Gord's making, I believe it's $5 million. Tanev's making $3.5 million. It's $8.5 million right there. Cartier's on that line, but he's not making league min. So, like, you can't blame him. But, like, do something. Because, like, right now we're watching paint dry and it's boring, pathetic hockey. And it's coming to the point where if something's not done, Francis is gone. Like, if your head's on the chopping block, which I firmly believe he's on the hot seat, make a move. Don't care what it is. Do something, because, like, I don't know about you. We've literally watched 12 games of hockey this year, and that means we have 70 games left. And I don't foresee it being any better to what we've actually watched already. We're going to get a good game here and there, but most of the games are going to be lackluster to say the least. So my vibe check, I'm not feeling really positive. It's not that great. Not that great.
So going back to the article, I hate to be the person like I've got this article up, but really and truly, I think Ron Francis knows exactly his position. He knows exactly that he's on the chopping block. In fact, he's a super loyal guy. So like letting go of Dave Haxtell was very difficult for him because he's super loyal. And I think the same goes for the players as well. As much as we hate to like think that way, I do think it's hard for him. But he does say, we've got an obligation to our season ticket holders, to our ownership, to put a team on the ice that will compete for a playoff spot. Part one, by the way, was the coach. Part two of the plan is making sure we're drafting and developing well so that when those kids are ready, they can step in and then we're competitive for a long period of time, not just a one and done. And to me, I just keep thinking that, like, yes, we did put pieces in place that indicate we want to compete this year, but I also think we do have a really good pool down the line. So I feel like we have to be patient as fans a little bit and let that sort of develop. But that part is frustrating because we got a taste of the playoffs. Everyone compares us to Vegas, and that part is really hard and really frustrating. So we do have to kind of think about the fact that like there's some really bright players coming up. So I'm trying really hard to like let this season be what it's going to be and sort of look to the future a little bit. It doesn't make it any less frustrating or any more that we might need a change in some way, but I do think there are some key things he's done well, like drafting and prospects.
Yeah, I really like the contrast between both of your guys' takes there. I think that this team is underperforming, and I do think that there is cause for optimism just because of a brand new coaching staff and seeing how, Montour and Stevenson are going to continue to mold into this team, as well as Shane Wright. Just wanted to also mention that a lot of our core is locked up for the next like 3 to 5 years, and we also have Montour, Stevenson, and Beniers for the next like 6 to 7 years. So this rebuild attempt, if we do go forward with it, it's going to have to be very meticulous. I think Ron Francis is capable of doing that. I don't know if I would necessarily want to bring in a new GM that's going to just keep trying to win now with a team that's broken. I think we've seen Ron Francis's ability to build. I think that I'm hopeful for the rest of the season. I think our team will start to click more, but I also think it's time to evaluate shopping some players to get value, open up spots for younger guys to develop, and hedge our bets on getting to a better draft pick this season. Because where we sit is 6th highest odds for the first overall pick. So there's one good thing out of all this.
And I just want to echo, like, I do think that Francis has done some tremendous work. Like, you see some of the picks that he's made, some trades that he's made. Fantastic. I got no complaints about that. I think the biggest thing is that you have assets that you can turn into better assets down the line. Like, I really do believe Yanni Gourde and Brandon Tanev, both players I love, have their time in Seattle. The time has come to let them go. Yanni, you could still get someone, something good back. And, either that be draft picks or prospects. And the same with Tanev. It's going to be at a lower return, but you're still going to get something good. And like I said, nothing to these players, but both of them are kind of wasted on the fourth line. Like
100%.
Gourde hasn't done much this season. And most of the time that I've watched him play, he's been in the penalty box. And then Tanev has just been Tanev. He had an excellent, inaugural season. Then he got hurt. And then he's just been kind of 50-50 the rest of the way. He's still a good player. And I think on the right team, he'd be fantastic. He's just not fitting the mold anymore here. And that just allows the Kraken to bring up some young talent, which we'll talk about later. But like Winterton is someone who's chomping at the bit. Just give him the opportunity. Like, throw Hayden in there. I know he's an older guy, but like, you want that guy filled with piss and vinegar. Like, that's your guy. That's your guy on the fourth line who's going to come in and just beat the ever-loving snot out of somebody just because he wants to. Like,
Yeah.
we need that type of, especially right now. And I think like one or two moves, I would have no issue. Like if we were very mediocre for the rest of the season, but we had good draft capital and a solid expectation in our prospect pool and whatnot, I'd be okay. Give Francis another opportunity. It's the concern I have is salary cap where we're at to where we're actually at as the team. It's just, to me, that doesn't work well. It just seemed like this offseason was a panic move by Francis just to do something for the fans. And if it's not altered in the correct way at the right time, it could blow back in his face. So
I think the key word you said there was anymore for Gord and Tanev, because I think that when we were we were literally 2 goals away from the Western Conference Final in our second season. During that season, I don't really think they stood out as sore spots, but now they definitely stand out as sore spots. I think that, they disrupt the entire flow now for sure. They're making a lot of money. Matt, do you have any thoughts about Gordo and Turbo and whether or not they should be traded? I feel like we haven't heard from you in a decent amount of time here.
I feel like we just gotta pick someone and make an example. Like, it sucks to be the person that's sacrificed, but that just might be, the kick in the pants that we need. Get rid of Turbo, bring up John Hayden, who's going to be the bodyguard that we know and love him to be, and just give our young guys a chance to get some time up in the big show and maybe grow into a more inexpensive version of the guys that are currently taking up that space.
Yeah, I just think something needs to happen. Like, usually moves happen before the Thanksgiving, like American Thanksgiving. And I really do think that it's just like, depending on how things work this week with Colorado and Vegas, like, it really, the clock is ticking. Like, because if you don't do something, whether that be drastic or, meticulous in the way that you make a move, like, you could easily start seeing your season fall away quite quickly. You'll lose one or two. Everyone's like, oh, it's only 1 or 2 games, but we've seen those skids in the past. And you have a skid like that, usually you can't recover from it.
I guess I just have one more quick question before we move on, if we're about to move on. But Alex, Heather, or Matt, really anyone, what do you guys think like the potential value we can get out of like trading Turbo is? Like, has anyone thought about that? Alex, maybe Heather?
I don't know about value. I know there was some rumors this morning, though. I think didn't Frank Severelli have something to say about Turbo and Gordo both being traded? Like, I did see something about that today, but to be fair, I did not look super far into it. But I think if we did that and even got one younger player back, like in some sort of way, I would be pretty happy with that, just because I think we need some fresh life and fresh fight. But I also think that can be done if we're bringing somebody up from Coachella in the same way. Like, I'm not saying we shouldn't get rid of those two. Like, I think, yes, let's do that and let's get something back for it, whatever that might be. But I also think we do have people like Ryan Winterton, who I'm going to go off on later because he's so good and so hungry for it. But I do think we have players like that are ready to like fight for a spot, and they're super excited and hungry to do that. And I think that's a little bit what's missing. I think last season we had a lot of that. There was a lot of complacency in my eyes with these players, and I think we're seeing a little bit more fight this season, but it's just almost not enough.
So just to chime in, because I don't have much to contribute on the actual dollars and cents portion of this, but I went and checked out what Cervelli said, and it says Seattle has too many forwards, and he's being told if everyone stays healthy, they're going to have to move someone in the coming weeks. Names Gord and Tanev, who are pending UFAs.
When you talk about returns, it's so difficult. The biggest issue is the cap hits for both Tanev and Gord. Like, that's the problem. Like, with Tanev, you might be able to get rid of him for a pick, but then you need to find a team that has cap space. Yeah. Like, that's the issue with that. Gord is an interesting player because he is a playoff caliber type player, because he can he really does his job well when he's in the playoffs. And we've seen that when he was with the Lightning. We saw it when we were in the playoffs 2 years ago. So Gord's an interesting character. When you look at Gord, I think you can get like some type of draft pick with like a mid-tier prospect. That's the vibe I'm kind of getting with Gord, whereas Turbo is just like a straight up pick, possible retention. But that opens the door for cap relief. That opens the door for bringing a player up. If you trade both of these players, I think the two players that slot in is John Hayden is your automatic, you know, center on fourth line. He takes over for Gord, which I think is a perfect swap in my opinion. And then I think Ryan Winterton takes the wing. And I think you see a fourth line of Winterton, Hayden, and Karche. And I'm
Could you
okay with
imagine
that.
that fresh energy?
That's
It
scrappy.
I'm
would.
already like
Yeah.
hyped about it.
Well, that's the thing, right? But like
It's different.
the biggest issue right now is that we know exactly what we're getting every game. Like the fourth line, Gord's gonna make a silly play and sit in the box, and we're all gonna say, "Oh, we've seen that before." So I just definitely think that like a change of scenery, like make an impact. Like I know everyone listening to this has probably wanted to punch me through their phones and earphones, being like, "Damn it! Like, don't tell me that Gord and Tanev are going to be traded. I love them. Like, yeah, I love them too. But at the end of the day, to further advance this team, you got to make moves, and we saw that with Wenberg last year. We saw them leave, Donato. We've seen them leave other players, and it's, times are changing. We need to make those moves when we can, and I just think it's the right time. And like I said, draft capital and maybe a prospect, I'd be okay with both of those.
Well, that was a very deep vibe check from the lot of us. We really leaned into that one there. So why don't we have just a brief glimmer of sunshine as we quickly recap game number 10 against the Canadiens, our 8-2 win, and then we're just gonna go right down in the valley of the 3-game skid that we go on. So awesome start to our week when we traveled to Montreal to play the Canadiens, and like I said, it was an 8-2 win. We streamed that game. We were buzzing the whole time. I was dressed as a taco, Heather was dressed as Harley Quinn, Alex was a stereotypical Canadian, and Derek got home late from work. It was great. Oh no,
He was the screwdriver
he
man.
was the screwdriver man. He was here to repair a chair.
Absolutely.
He's going to disassemble your chair.
I'm here to
sorry.
loosen your screws.
There we go. And it definitely didn't win the costume contest that we were having, but the Kraken did win, and they won in very dominant fashion. We had 8 goals from Jamie Alexiak, who had that on their bingo card going to that game, that Jamie Alexiak would start off the scoring. Riker Evans, Jaden Schwartz, Oliver Bjorkstrand, Ellie Tolvanen. We got to play the Tolvi song finally on stream, and most notably, a hat trick from Monty Mania himself, Brandon Montour, a natural hat trick, which I learned was what? Team, what is a natural hat trick, my teachers?
It means nobody scored in between his 3 goals from either team. It's
Excellent.
amazing.
And that left me to wonder, what is a supernatural hat trick? Is there ghosts
They
and
wear a
ghouls and
cape.
goblins? They wear a cape. I like it. That's good. Somewhat surprisingly, this was Monty's first career hat trick, and this was the first hat trick scored by a defenseman this season, so lots of excitement around there. And one thing that I got pretty hyped for was Chandler Stevie Stevenson had 4 assists on the night, and 3 of them came on the power play. So a big shout out to our favorite coach Jess Campbell for getting the guys in line that night at least and scoring on the power play, because that was a pretty hype game for us to watch.
Couple
The
of
fact
really
that-
great things. Lars threw his helmet down on the ice when Monty got his hat trick, and I just really loved that. I thought that was just really fun to see. So I love Lars's sense of humor, so that was fun. Stevenson, like I do have to talk about him just because I keep noticing how well he moves across the ice. Like it just makes it look too easy almost. And this was one of those nights. I think it was Schwartz's goal. He literally like took the puck from the Seattle zone all the way to the other zone to give it to Schwartz, who ended up scoring.
Yep.
But yeah, I love his ability to get through traffic, and like I said, he just sometimes makes it look way too easy. Last person I want to talk about, though, aside from this just being a fun game, was Shane Wright. I know no goals, no assists, but he was on the ice for 4 of the goals. Like that stuff really matters and really starts to add up. And I think we're just seeing that more consistent in his game. So I'm still really hyped for his development. And maybe it's not on the score sheet, but that stuff starts to matter too. So fun night all around, though. I'm glad we streamed that one and not the other ones.
Yeah, this game feels like it was a year ago. And also, I just wanted to echo Heather there. It's like the only thing I wrote down in my notes from watching any of these games was that Chandler Stevenson was looking insane. I think he looks like a young, more prime version of Tatar from last year. The way he's able to just hold on to it through traffic, it's a rare Kraken trait. And I'm very appreciative of it. I think his contract might be worth it, honestly.
So one of the cool facts about this game, especially for Brandon Montour, he's actually the 8th defenseman in the last 40 years to score a natural hat trick, which I think is such a cool stat because for 40 years, 40 seasons, Brandon Montour is one of those 8 defensemen now. And, that was his first hat trick, and to get a natural hat trick at the same time, it's a pretty cool stat. This game was fun to watch. I'm so glad we live streamed this one opposed to the other 3 because it had everything you wanted. It had goals, it had chaos, and it had Shane Wright not scoring, but showing Slavkovsky that sometimes being drafted first isn't all what it's meant to be. So kind of love that too. We're going to kind of go from here. Game 11 against the Maple Leafs, 4-1 loss. I don't think none of us expected that, Derek's costume of him being the one with the screwdriver was going to literally derail the Kraken for the next 3 games. Great costume. It literally caused chaos within the ranks of the Seattle Kraken because
sunglasses, good luck, screwdriver, bad luck. We've learned
exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Because
I got to wear the taco from now on.
The hot dog.
Yeah, and I guess got to dress up like like a lumberjack, eh?
Don't make me do that makeup every time, though, guys.
But we're going to Toronto, Ontario, Canada. The Kraken were missing both Vince Dunn because Mr. Dunn is injured, and Brandon Montour. He missed the game, but that was a very good note and a positive note because him and his wife welcomed the birth of their daughter. So congrats to the family. Cale Fleury was called up this time in the press box, eating chips and Doritos and you name it. Came to a sudden end, and we were only expecting Cale Fleury's. Too bad the Kraken weren't ready for them either. Joey's 3rd start in a row, which I think really has cemented the fact that Decord is the number 1 starter for the Kraken this season until he loses it. We gave up a goal in the last 5 seconds of the first period. If we had a drinking game, I'm pretty sure, one of them would definitely be take a shot if the Kraken, give up a goal in the last 10 seconds of a game or of a period per se. And that's just a given. That's just an absolute given. So that happened. And then our only goal was scored by the one and only Eeli Tolvanen, and with Joey pulled for the last 5 minutes. So if you kind of want to say how exciting this game was, it was literally like watching grass grow on a cold winter Tuesday. Boring, freezing, and pathetic. But Heather has some interesting takes about the broadcast. Take it away.
I just want to throw some positivity in there because this broadcast was really cool. So Linda Cohn and Allison Lucan were basically the intermission and pregame, postgame announcers. And also, Piper Shaw always does the intermission interviews and gives all the information. She also interviewed Jess Campbell, Coach Jess. So I just loved seeing that. Made me really happy. Women belong in sports, and I love that the Kraken are leading the way in that. That broadcast was fire, and I tweeted it out. Allison, Linda, and Piper all loved it. So I just think like we need some more of that, and I'm really thrilled that I am doing this with a team that really does believe that as well. So that was my biggest takeaway in the positive column for this game, to be quite honest.
Now bring us back down with game 12.
I know. Now I'm going to talk about the Kraken at the Senators. Oh, God, you guys. This was maybe the worst game I've seen in a really long time, or maybe ever. This was a 3-0 loss. It was such an ugly game, to be quite honest. They didn't manage the puck well. They were super disjointed. They couldn't win a board battle to save their life. And Ottawa really just kept them to the perimeter, and they just couldn't get through the defense at all. I don't know where the chemistry was that we had been seeing. It was kind of like they'd never met each other, especially in the top six. Like, where was that? I just don't even know. It was kind of like they were like, oh, are you new here? I don't get it. I will give a couple of positives just because I'm going to try. Penalty kill was fantastic. Gru also was great. He had a .909 save percentage, and I actually don't see I don't see any goal here as his fault. Maybe one was goaltender interference, but as we've established, and as Alex has mentioned, we don't know. So maybe, maybe not. Still a really confusing time there. The other one was sort of like this, I don't know, it was like kind of like a bouncing puck, and it ended up kind of luckily bouncing, but there was no defenseman to really stop that either. So it's frustrating sometimes to watch Gru in net because he can't get any support. He can't get any goal support there. It does get really frustrating. So I don't know, Derek, do you want to just give stats real quick on this one?
Well, they were 2.71 excluding the empty net goal. So Grubauer had 0.71 goals saved above expected. That's pretty significant for Grubauer. And the Kraken only generated 1.46 expected goals for. So it wasn't like one of those games where we're getting robbed by the other goaltender. We've seen that as a pattern lately, that the Kraken just cannot generate expected goals for anything.
Everybody knows I live in Canada. I don't get to see Kraken games live. And if you watched us last year on live streams, you knew that I probably talked about the fact that I got to go see Seattle play in Ottawa last year, and they got shut out 3-0. Well, I almost bought tickets to go see this game, and thank God I didn't, because you would have seen the shell of a man who hadn't seen the Kraken score live in 120 minutes.
My positive is that I didn't have to watch this game because I was watching my Saskatchewan Roughriders go to the Western Final for the CFL Grey Cup. So I got to see one of my teams with an S-based logo win. So I'll take that.
Let's go. Do you guys think there's anyone that went to the Senators game and they're like, oh, I didn't get to see a Kraken goal. I'll just go to the Boston game tomorrow because I'll definitely see a goal there.
Not a clue, but I know that the S on the chest this week stood for subpar.
Ooh,
I was
like
going to
that.
say,
Oh my goodness. I'm going to have to bleep that out.
I think we're allowed one.
Okay.
I don't know what the Spotify rules are on expletives. We'll figure it out.
Goal
horn.
horn.
Yeah.
All right, now it's time to glaze over this last game. It was played yesterday, right? It was yesterday?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We've already erased it from our memories, but yes,
Well,
it was
that's-
yesterday.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Joey's back in net. It was back-to-back. Shooting was abysmal. After 40 minutes of play, shots were 30-10. Kraken had the 10. I believe it took until, what was it, like 5 minutes left in the first period before our first shot or something like that.
It took 17 minutes before the
17
Kraken
minutes.
registered a shot on goal. Period.
Embarrassing, pathetic, as Alex would say.
Pathetic.
Very pathetic. Started picking up the intensity in the third period, but when you have a start like that, you just can't do anything really. So, I mean, just something absolutely crazy about this game, and then we'll move on, is that the Bruins generated 5.05 expected goals against Joey Decord, okay? And he only let in 2, okay? So 3.05 goals saved above expected. With a 939 save percentage. Unreal game from Joey. So this weekend we had 2 unreal games from our goaltenders. Really good game by Gru, got shut out. Really good game by Joey, got shut out. And I just want to mention here that the Kraken are actually 6th in the league in save percentage and absolutely squandering it with 0 goals for. It's it's so painful.
I'm screaming internally.
It's like that meme where you click the little toggle switches and the other ones toggle off. That's what it's like. Okay. And that's all Seattle sports. So we're used to it. All right. But that's all for that game.
Well, we're going to go down south and have a little bit of positivity with Desert Dialogues. There was positives, but kind of bringing up the whole fact it wasn't the best week with Coachella. First game of the week, they played the Barracuda, where they had a 5-1 loss. No Max McCormick. Captain Max was out with an upper body injury and was day-to-day. Cale Fleury and John Hayden were up with the Kraken, sitting up in the press box, so they didn't play. Coach Laxdal was out due to illness. And the Barracudas have former Firebirds Andrew Podorowski and Jimmy Schultz. And Ben Myers had the lone goal with assists from Jager Furcus. So at least the Furcus Circus came to town to that game. The next game on Friday, they played the Bakersfield Condors. They lost 5-3, unfortunately. 48 shots on goal despite the loss. So it was quite an impressive performance when it came to offensive styles. The Kraken could really use that. Nudge, nudge, hint, hint, Ty Nelson tied the game in the first period with his first ever AHL goal. And then David Goyette just cleanly beat the Condors goaltender in a nice move, pull within one. Also his first AHL goal. Gustav Olofsson had the third goal, but they couldn't get past that. So that basically ended with that 5-3 loss. And then on Saturday, it was a 5-2 win in the back-to-back against the Condors. Nicholas Coco in net stopped 24 shots. So that's definitely a goaltending prospect to keep an eye on as we move forward with the Firebirds this season. They were also 4-for-4 on the penalty kill. Positivity both in Seattle and Coachella when it comes to penalty kill. Firebirds scored first with a goal by Ian McKinnon. Leighton Road and Jacob Mellinson had a goal apiece. And there were two unassisted goals by the one and only Ryan Winter is Coming Winterton. And with that, Heather, bring the winter hypes.
I could not be more excited to talk about Ryan Winterton this time. So he had two unassisted goals in that game and two assists in that game. The first goal was actually a shorthanded goal, which was pretty cool. Coachella was on the kill when the game was tied 1-1. And then Winterton, this is what I'm talking about with him being hungry. He skated his ass off to beat a Condor player to the puck and then just took it to the net to score. Like, he didn't hesitate. He just did what he needed to do. Like, I just love the fight in him I just love that. And then it was nearly like 2 minutes after that, close to, he was able to win a board battle. Again, something we were not seeing from the Kraken. And he got the puck to Ben Myers, who then got the puck to Leighton Road. And that's how that goal was scored. And Leighton Road was in front of the net. So some net front presence, which I also enjoy. And then Ryan Winterton got the assist on Jacob Melanson's goal in the third. And then finally, he got that empty net goal to seal the win for the Firebirds. So I don't know. I just am super excited about him. I know he's still developing and he still has some things to learn, but it's just super positive to watch games like this and see him really excel. So I am all for bringing Ryan Winterton up at any point in time, but I am excited about some of these players. It's nice to see them continue to show up on the scoreboard. And like we were talking about earlier, I just think we have a really bright future in some of these players. So it's really fun to watch the Firebirds right now, even with, they lost two of these 3 games, but it was still fun to watch them and still fun to see these players get on the scoreboard.
Yeah, I don't really watch the Firebirds. So like Alex and Heather, you guys are kind of like the Firebirds experts here. But I kind of have a question as to like philosophy. Like, what do these players think they're doing scoring all these goals? Like, do they think that that's going to help them make a team that clearly doesn't like scoring goals? Or I'm just a little confused.
Did they understand the idea that you actually have to like shoot the puck towards the net in order to get the puck into the net? I kind of think maybe they understand that. I don't know. It's a real
Might
conundrum
be too good for
there.
the Kraken.
It's so easy to understand, but apparently it's not. It's foreign when you enter Seattle Kraken territory. So I don't know. It just seems very logical. The Firebirds just know how to score. They've known how to score since their inaugural season. Just would also like to mention Ben Myers has 6 points in 7 games. He's another one to look at if they're going to call somebody up. I thought he was going to make the team to begin with. So the fact that he's producing at the level at the AHL, I think he's a definite candidate that you could see up with the Kraken if moves are made or if injuries occur. Secondly, to talk about is Edward Chalet. 5 games played, 5 points. I don't think he's injured. He might have been one of the victims of the illness that has been going around, but that's definitely someone to keep an eye on as well. He's not going to get called up to the NHL this season. I think he's going to do a pretty solid job in the AHL though. So that's just another player to keep an eye on.
And if you're wanting to catch the Firebirds this week, they play against the Colorado Eagles on Tuesday the 5th and Wednesday the 6th. And then they play the Ontario Reign on Friday the 8th and Sunday the 10th.
We'll finish out on some sillies here with our recurring segment of the sound table. our weekly roundtable of topics, talking about all sorts of things outside of the Kraken organization in the hockey world, with the exception of this first one, but we want to make sure we get some promo in for this one. Soundtable topic number 1. The Seattle Kraken Super Skills Showcase goes down this Saturday, November 9th at 1:30 p.m. Events happening here include accuracy shooting, relay race, hardest shot, breakaway challenge, and a 3-on-3 game. The teams were decided in a YouTube video they released earlier this week. Joey and Gru sat down and drew names out of a hat. Team Gruby, and I'm going to read them by their nicknames because this is how their names were announced. Berkey, Canner, Borgie, Garth, Lars, Gordo, Maddie, Ryder, and best nickname on the team, Josh Muzzy Mahura. Team Joey is Turbo, Monty, Tolvi, Bjorky, Stevie, Schwartzy, Ebbs, Big Rig, and Karts. Like I said, this event goes down Saturday, November 9th at 1:30. You can get tickets for $15 each, or they have a special 4-pack for $12.50 each. Heather and Derek, you've taken in this event before, have you not?
Yep. I think it's a really fun event. And I actually was kind of sad they didn't do it last season, only because, I think the timing for this year is better because last time they did it, it was like right after the All-Star break, I think, or right before. I can't remember, but they were exhausted and it was still fun, but I feel like the timing was bad. So this is much better. They're a little fresher, but I think it's a great event because it's really accessible for people, especially with families, because Kraken tickets are expensive. So if you can go, your family of 4 for $12.50 a ticket, it's much more accessible. It's really fun to watch. It's super laid back. You can just go and enjoy. So I'm really excited that they brought this one back and that the timing is November and not February.
Completely agree with Heather. It's super fun. It's always been, even when the team's bad, it's a really nice time. I actually helped out with it 2 years ago when I was on the ice crew, on the Icebreakers, and I demoed the relay race before the event started, and I got they timed it, and I was on the big screen and everything. I think I got a 45-second time, which for a beer league player like me I'm taking that, because then when the Kraken got up there, their times were 30. But I'm like, okay, 15 seconds, I'll take that. You had to saucer pass over these tiny little obstacles into these tiny nets, and I got 3 out of 4, which I was like, okay, I'll just keep going.
They should sign you.
Honestly, I was like,
performance has been lately.
You guys have this on tape.
Hey,
where's my invite?
You do better on that 4th line, so I'm just going to say that.
I don't know about that, but yeah, super fun time. If you're around and available, $15, just November 9th at 1:30, you should go to it for sure. Are we picking teams here? Because I think Team Gruby looks way better.
No, I'm going to go with Joey.
Oh,
I think I'm Team Joey also.
Matt,
you know what?
You want to shake hands?
Let's do it. You're below me on the Zoom screen, but I'm shaking hands with you.
Let's go.
There we go. All right. Maybe we'll throw it out on Twitter what the losing team has to do. We'll get some sort of humiliation from the listeners. Moving on to Soundtable topic number 2. In the NHL here, Connor McDavid is out 2 to 3 weeks with an ankle injury. McDavid went down in the opening shift against the Blue Jackets last Monday. I'm sure all who have Connor McDavid on their fantasy teams have been mourning since then. Alex is pointing to his chest for those in our audio realm. Real downer there, having a star player out. We hope that he gets back soon. No one wants to wish injuries upon another, but that's just kind of a downer for that team.
Riker Evans, can't compete with Riker. That's the only problem.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
It's not a hurt ankle, it's a hurt ego, because Riker has as many goals as he did through 9 games or whatever stat we put out. Soundtable topic number 3. Sportsnet reporter Gene Principe was on air during the Nashville-Edmonton game on Halloween and decided to interview some kids in the stands. When Gene, dressed as a hot dog, asked one of the kids why he wasn't dressed up for Halloween, it didn't quite go as expected.
Kids are so nice. Now, how about you, buddy? I'll give you this, but tell me why you're not dressed up.
I don't want to look like a wiener.
What?
And it's just yet another fantastic meme to come out of the season. I think we have Joey doing the belly flop stage dive into the huddle at the end, and now we have Gene Principe saying what, and we've already incorporated into our vocabulary I don't want to be a wiener. So
Wiener.
Wiener. What a wiener. Soundtable topic, the next one, I lost count, so I'm going to say that again. Soundtable topic number 4. Following the Carolina Hurricanes game against Seattle last week, the team was forced to take a bus to the next game in Vancouver due to their plane breaking down. Now, them being on the plane, they weren't able to have their fancy meals that they usually have served. So while on the bus, they called in on the McDonald's app to a McDonald's in Everett and pulled over to the side. Defenseman Brett Burns got out of the bus, went up to the drive-through window because the restaurant itself was closed down, and they wouldn't serve him going through the drive-through. So he did what any person would do, especially if you're 6'5" or whatever he happens to be. Go knock on a random window of a car in the parking lot and ask them to drive you through. The rumored, although to my knowledge it has not been confirmed, the rumored order was 100 cheeseburgers coming through that drive-through window. Do you think he at least sauced one of those burgers to the probably 18-year-old kid that he pulled out of the parking lot?
Oh, for sure. Don't you think it has to be at
100%.
least 100 cheeseburgers, though? Like,
Easily.
the cheeseburgers are not very big. I just keep thinking, like, that's not that much for hockey players to eat, to be honest. I think it's at least 100.
Yeah, they're probably like 300 calories each, and they're
Mhm.
probably gonna try to get at least 1,000 after a game. So
Yep.
I was gonna say you could dummy 2 of those, no problem, like
Mhm.
easily,
Oh,
like,
easy.
without a thought.
Maybe they had
So-
fries and
Some
maybe
nuggies.
the ice cream machine happened to be working that day.
What are the odds of that happening, though?
30 ice cream cones.
Yeah, but could you imagine like working there? You're like maybe 16, 17 years old, and you're just like working the window, and all of a sudden you hear like a, and then you turn, and there's Brent Burns, big bushy beard, no teeth, being like, "Hey, friend, so I ordered all this food on the app." You're like, but you don't have a car. Like, you need to find a car, man. And just being like, okay, just figuring out to find that car, and then being like, yo, I'll sauce you a burger if you help me get these 100 burgers back to my boys. Like the whole concept is actually wild when you think about it.
You have to give that guy like a hockey stick or a signed puck or something
Signed
from the
something,
team.
yeah.
Something
Yeah,
from the team. Yeah.
100%.
I just imagine some like 18-year-old stoner sitting in the McDonald's parking lot that just like freaked out of his mind when 6'5", 230 bearded guy with missing teeth knocks on his
Banging
window.
on the window.
Yo, man, Brent Burns, I met him last night. He told me to drive him through the McDonald's drive-through for 100 burgers, man. It was so legit, man.
Alex, have you ever gotten high in your life?
I don't think so, based on
No.
that.
Yeah, based on that, probably not.
I was honestly just doing like the 70s show thing. So
Our next topic on the sound table. The Minnesota Wild were in Pittsburgh last week for a game against the Penguins. Following a Wild practice on Monday morning, goaltender Marc-Andre Fleury saw some teenagers who were part of the Penguins XL hockey camp running drills, and he just decided to skate out onto the ice, take a couple reps in net for a few minutes, and just let these kids take shots on him. And my question on this is, how cool would it be to go back to school that afternoon? You roll into your 5th period chemistry class and just say, hey, I got to rifle some shots at a former #1 NHL draft pick and 3-time Stanley Cup champ.
I mean, how can you not love Marc-Andre Fleury, though? Like, I actually don't care for a lot of players on other teams just because I'm so Kraken-centric, but he's one of the ones that I do pay attention to. I think he's so funny, and I love when he goes out and does things with kids or just, surprises people. Like, I think what a gem of a human being. Like, I think he's great. So I love that story.
Didn't he put on like a disguise and go out with the ice crew too?
He did.
Yeah,
he put
he
on
did.
like a
I
mustache
would've
and
loved
stuff.
that
Like,
so much.
funny.
But he
Also, he's like joked about them calling him old and like gone out with a cane instead of a stick. Like he's just so funny.
he also decided to dress up as McLovin for Halloween this year and like pulled it off to a T.
It's very good.
So, like, just perfect.
Do you think I only saw like a brief couple seconds clip of it. Do you think he went balls to the walls on it, or did he maybe let one slide by just to gas that kid up a little bit?
Oh no, there's only one mentality, your brick wall, no matter what.
Full
Yeah.
send.
Yep.
We'll send talking
Either do it
smack
or you
after.
don't do it.
Our second last sound table top for this week. Last week, the PWHL announced their plans to open the league up to expansion to 2 more teams as soon as next season. Do we have any predictions where these teams, will fall? Seattle, Derek's putting up an S, probably a little far west. I know, Heather, you've talked about this before.
Yeah, I wish it would be Seattle, but it's gonna be East Coast. I mean, I think Detroit is heavily rumored, Pittsburgh, Chicago, like places like that. I just think it's gonna have to be more east, just because of the the factor that there's just not enough money to do big travel quite yet. It's gaining momentum, it's gaining speed, it's gaining traction. It's very popular. This will happen. It's just going to be a little while still. I think if we're talking like Canada cities, it's like Quebec, Vancouver is one that they've put on there, but it's kind of like a wild card pick just because it's west. But like people have thrown that out there, and I'm like, no, if it happens, it's got to be Seattle on the west first. That's all I ask. But I do think it'll be East Coast, if anything.
I'm going off the board. Halifax. Let's get wild. Let's get crazy.
I've heard that. Nope, Halifax is definitely rumored. Yep.
Yeah,
Where is Halifax?
It's in Nova Scotia.
Nova Scotia.
East Coast.
Okay.
So they definitely can have a team. Like I fully
Mhm.
believe that Halifax has the capacity, and I think they would sell out no problem.
Well, they've been trying for a really long time to get a CFL team going there, and they do what's called Touchdown Atlantic every year. So they have a game out in Halifax. So there's a sports market waiting to happen. So if they put a hockey team there, I'm sure people would eat that up. And our final sound table topic for this week, we are on Alexander Ovechkin record watch. He is creeping in on Wayne Gretzky. As of this time recording, he has 860 goals, 34 goals to go. I feel every day I open up my Twitter feed and it says, well, here's number 857, 858 in the same game. How soon do we think he's going to hit these 34 goals?
It's happening this year. The Russian machine never quits. His age, it's kind of like the same conversation with Crosby. Like you would expect both him and Crosby to slow down, and they just haven't this year. Like both of them are just full send it. 34 goals for Ovechkin. Like he could surpass that no problem by like March, in my opinion. Like I think it's easily before the season ends. Just the way that he's going, like if he gets 2 goals here, like a hat trick here, it's bound to happen this season. I'd be shocked if it didn't happen this season now.
Well, that'll do it for the sound table this week. Heather, do you want to let us know what our week ahead is looking like?
I would love to. We only have 2 games this week. Maybe mercifully only 2 games this week, but we'll see. Tuesday, November 5th, the Kraken will be in Colorado to face the Avalanche. That game's at 6 p.m. PST. On election night is a real choice for the NHL, but okay. It'll be a distraction for me. Then the boys are back home to face the Vegas Golden Knights at CPA on Friday, November 8th at 7 p.m. PST, and we will be streaming that one. Yay! So join us on YouTube for all the fun and hopefully a good game. But that's it for this week. Just two games.
Anyone know our streaming record so far?
I think we're 2-1
Nice. That's good. Better than
because we had the overtime win and then we had the 8-2. So you should probably come watch on Friday because history dictates that's probably going to be a win. All right, Derek. Let's close out here. It's been a very energetic night, but I don't know about you. I'm ready to decompress and go to bed. Do you want to let people know where they can find us online?
Yeah, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube. As Matt mentioned, live stream on Friday, live commentary, post-game discussion. Please drop a follow wherever you're engaging with this material and a 5-star review on any podcast app that you're using. The place that you can find us, so no one told you, we were BTW SEA. Only the real ones will get that.
What is this?
BTWSEA is where we're at. BTWSEA on all platforms.
BTWSEA.
I need some pom-poms.
Heather should have delivered that one because that was way better than whatever you just did. All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for putting up with us. Like Derek said, drop a review. Share this to at least 3 of your friends. I want to see on my desk tomorrow morning a report of who you shared this podcast to. We will be back next week with more podcast content. I am Matt. We have Heather, Derek, and Alex. This has been Beneath the Waves, and we will see you next week.
Release the Kraken.